Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., all rights reserved.
And now, back to the man who thinks Wall Street could learn a thing or two about how business is done on Main Street.
Well, if the good Lord don't like the way I conduct business, let him say something. Let him give me a sign.
Jim Blasingame, the Small Business Advocate.
Welcome back, 34 after the hour. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Thanks for being part of my day. My pleasure as always. We got Bill Diffenderffer back on the show. Bill is a member of our Brain Trust, former IBM executive, the founder of Skybus Airlines, and the author of The Last Samurai Leader, and his newest book is A Bank of Last Resort. He's our good friend, Bill Diffenderffer. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. It's a pleasure to talk to you and to your listeners.
It's always a pleasure to have you back, and I especially like having people back on the show whose name is longer than mine.
Well, my name's longer than just about everybody.
Hey, Bill, what does the landscape look like out there overall for raising capital for anything? We're going to get specific in a little bit, but first, talk to us about what you think the general landscape is for capitalizing anything out there these days.
I think it's a great subject, Jim. I've been involved in trying to do a startup business now that would go right into the mainstream retail area, and let me tell you, it is hard. And it's an idea that I've talked to a lot of hedge funds about. They all love the idea. But they're all saying, right now we just don't do startups. And it's funny because when we listen to the political environment, talking back to us, they say, well, we need jobs from small business. Well, small business wants to create jobs, but small business needs capital. So we're running into this trap where a great idea is met with excitement, but no dollars.
And it's not like they don't have the money, because there's money. We're awash in cash.
There is lots of money out there, but they're afraid of the risk, and you can't blame them for that. I mean, they're business guys. I'm not trying to get anybody to do something they shouldn't do or it's a bad business proposition, but they're not saying it's a bad business proposition. They're simply saying, we don't do startups. Mm-hmm. And that's got my dander riled, because if somebody doesn't help you finance startups, how do you become, stronger with growing a small business base? And
well,
so
of course, you know that in the 90s, we went through a period of time where it was pretty ridiculous, the stuff that happened, and I mean it was in the extreme the other direction in the 90s, as you know.
Well, in the 90s, I raised some capital for a technology startup in the travel management space. I raised $40 million.
Yeah,
and it wasn't easy. But how'd
that business work out?
Well, we ended up running into the technology bubble, and when it burst, but we actually did pretty well with it. Our product is still out there.
But you know, Bill, that there was an awful lot of stuff. I mean, it was there was a lot of stupid things that happened in the 90s. So I think what's going on right now is, to some degree, is a reaction to that. But also the current circumstances of this deleveraging. I mean, the deleveraging affects the startup opportunity, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does. But I tell you, you don't have to go back to the 90s. I raised $160 million for an airline startup in 2006 and 7.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that long ago that you could raise money if you had a great idea.
Yeah.
But right now, great idea doesn't mean you raise money. It means you're still with your hat in hand begging around the streets.
Well, and it's not. See, you're talking. You're talking the world of high finance when you're talking about needing to raise $10 million or $40 million or whatever. That's not even in the lexicon of most startups in America, for example. They'd be happy with $5,000 or $25,000, and so, but there's no this new deleveraging attitude that we've got in the world is no respecter of size. I mean, it's just as tough for a little guy to raise capital as it is for people with big ideas like you.
Well, I think that's exactly right. But you know what? The solution could well deal with both sides of that.
And what would be
in my head.
Give us your 30-second answer for what the solution is.
Okay, my 30-second answer is a very simple one. You have loans today that are backed by the Small Business Administration.
Yeah.
There are all sorts of ways to try and get dollars to small business. You've got the plan to do tax depreciation, advanced tax depreciation for capital acquisitions, et cetera.
Yeah.
Why not give some kind of special tax treatment to equity investments that go wrong in small business?
Mm-hmm.
All it means is, what we're saying is, if you invest in a small business, we'll give you some kind of tax advantage.
But see, Bill, you're presuming that the people who have the ability to do what you just said actually really do intend to put their money where their mouth is, and that might be a mistake for you to make that presumption. Perhaps you. Hold on, Bill. Hold on to that. Perhaps you might note my sarcasm. 20 till. I'll be right back with Bill Diffenderffer after these messages.
Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., intended for the private use of our audience. Except as otherwise provided by copyright law, all other copying, redistribution, or publication without prior written consent is prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited.